From the grounds of Paulsboro High School in Paulsboro, New Jersey, CN8 presents High School Football. Today, the Woodbury Thundering Herd visit the Paulsboro Red Raiders. Hello again, everyone. Rob Christ along with my partner, Marc Narducci. A beautiful summer afternoon here as two traditional rivals will take on one another. You know, Hurricane Isabel made its path through the Delaware Valley, and that's been the case with Paulsboro over the last few years, a winning streak of 35 straight.
Yeah, and the only team that had a better winning streak, Rob, was Paulsboro, 63, the state record, and that, by the way, was stopped by Woodbury. So these two teams have a little bit of a history. A lot of times they also meet in the Group 1 playoffs. I expect both of them to be the two major Group 1 teams in South Jersey this year, along with Salem. So this will be a good first one. Now, Woodbury played last week. Paulsboro didn't. We'll see if that has a factor.
Well, for Paulsboro, Ryan White will be taking over for Isaac Redmond. Last week we talked about how Moorestown would have to replace Albert Young. Isaac Redmond, a major cog in this offense last year.
Well, of course, Isaac Redmond, one of the all-time leading rushers, over 5,000 career yards in South Jersey for Paulsboro. Now, Ryan White is not going to be the only one replacing him because Paulsboro has a number of good young sophomore backs, such as Vinny Scott and some others. And I think it's going to be more of a running back by committee. But where White really helps you is in the secondary. He's one of only 5 returning starters on this team that is coming back, and he's going to help them on both sides of the ball. He's a great hitter.
Well, speaking of great hitters, Chris Presley, a fine linebacker, but on the offense, he is a flat-out punishing runner.
Well, he is, Rob. I mean, it's 6'1" and 258, and he runs under a 4'7". I mean, he can hurt you a lot of ways. Now, a lot of teams take him out of the offense. He doesn't always get to carry the ball a whole lot. In fact, last year, just 95 carries, but 950 yards. But when he's not running the ball, he's one of the best blockers in South Jersey. He's one of the premier student athletes and Division I recruits in this area.
Well, both of these teams will make a major statement today as to who is the team to beat in Group 1. Stick around, we'll have starting lineups and the kickoff right after this. Welcome back to Paulsboro High School as Woodbury's Thundering Herd visits Paulsboro. And kicking off will be Paulsboro as Nino Palomini will do the chores for the Red Raiders. As we mentioned, this Red Raiders team on a 35-game win streak. And we're about to get underway. Back deep for Woodbury is Marvin McKinney. And we'll be talking quite a bit about McKinney this afternoon.
Yeah, I'd keep it away from McKinney, one of the most dangerous players in South Jersey.
At his 10, finds a small seam brought down at the 21-yard line. First down and 10 here for Woodbury's Thundering Herd. And out you see Kyle Miller. Miller, the quarterback of this Paulsboro team, last week 5 for 7 with 1 touchdown pass, and head coach Zach Valentine really likes Miller and his leadership.
Well, the one thing is, if either of these quarterbacks have to throw the ball more than about 12 times, that's against what both teams like to do. They like to keep it on the ground and run the ball.
In the backfield, we mentioned Presley in the open. Also McKinney, who returned the kick. The first handoff will go to McKinney. Behind the block of Presley, on his feet. Finally tripped up and brought down, but not before picking up a big chunk here. 14 yards on the carry, first down and 10 for Woodbury. Let's take a look at our offensive backs and receivers. Marvin McKinney, Kyan Grimes, Chris Presley, Kyle Harvey, and Brian Duffield for the Herd. Justin Elmore, Brandon Muse, a very good one. Patrick McMahon, Jerry Jefferson, and Michael Midlew, your offensive line. First and 10, it's the big guy Presley still on his feet, carrying tacklers. And again, he'll be very close to a Woodbury first down. Well, Chris Presley, right through that defensive line, you see there Jeremy Tarpley, Tredell Hodges, Kyle Castrava, and Mike Smith. Linebackers, Nino Palomini and Jake Tropia. And Ryan White, Vincent Scott, Deandra Folks, Craig Bell, and Ainsley Carrera, the strong point of this Paulsboro defense. Here's the handoff, and this one will go to DeQuayne Nilsson. So, very little there.
Nice job by 84, Jermaine Tarpley, the defensive end that time. Jeremy Tarpley not letting them get outside that time, and that's the key to this Woodbury team. Now watch as 84 stands up his block, and right there, in on the tackle. That's a good play.
It's actually Grimes on the carry. So we've seen 3 ball carriers for Woodbury in the first 3 plays from scrimmage, really giving this Paulsboro defense a variety of looks. And again, it'll be the big guy, Presley. And that's how you have to tackle Chris Presley. Wrapping him up at his feet is Paulsboro's linebacker, Kyle Kostrava, just a sophomore, and they're very excited about him.
Well, they are, and I think this is a good sophomore class for Paulsboro. A lot of guys like Kostrava starting both ways. A lot of people think that if any year to get Paulsboro, this might be the year, Rob, because with the only 5 starters back, this is an inexperienced Paulsboro team as we've seen in some time. That doesn't mean this won't be a formidable team.
Well, Woodbury certainly thinks this may be their year. 2nd down, 8. Miller back to pass. Good protection. Out of 2. Looking for Kyle Harvey. Unable to hook up, but good coverage there by Paulsboro, and that's really the only place that Miller could throw that football.
Well, actually, though, a little bit overthrown, or Harvey could have gone the distance that time. Again, tremendous speed on the outside for Woodbury. Remember last year, McKinney was a wide receiver, Rob. They put him in the backfield because they just need to get him more touches. That was a big win, I thought, last week over what I think is going to be a very much improved Haddonfield team. 20-7, and McKinney, of course, with 127 yards rushing.
Well, remember in that game, Mark, 20-7, the only touchdown they yielded was on special teams. Back to pass, Miller setting up the screen, has a man, and it's going to be McKinney. McKinney with a lot of room to operate, cuts it back towards the sideline, still on his feet, cuts it back in, and that'll be whistled dead, but not before he has picked up a big first down here for Woodbury. Well, you could see that play really develop from up here, Mark.
Well, not only that, but it shows a little the inexperience of Paulsboro because that screen took longer than it should have to develop, and still McKinney had plenty of time. Look, there wasn't a red shirt, Rob. That's a great replay. There wasn't a red shirt within 10 yards of him. And, of course, if you give him that kind of open field, forget it.
First down and 10 here for the Thundering Herd. Ball spotted now at the 30-yard line. And that's where you see McKinney step out. So McKinney did a great job to pick up an additional 10 yards on that play, and quickly a handoff inside, 2nd down here for Woodbury.
Now last week Woodbury had 90 yards in penalties, 13 penalties, 4 turnovers, Rob. So that's going to be the key. And you remember last year when they lost to Paulsboro 31-7, they committed 6 turnovers. So Woodbury has to take care of the ball here today.
Well, each coach said, in order for us to win this game, we have to limit mistakes. So likelihood is the team with the most turnovers loses. And there's, once again, Kyan Grimes. And he meets the Paulsboro line, but a nice pickup. It'll be 3rd down and short. Jay Tropia on the tackle for the Red Raiders.
Pretty good defensive play by Craig Bell. Number 24 on that play. Bell will come up a lot and make a lot of tackles in there. Again, this is not a very big Paulsboro team, but very good team quickness.
3rd down 4. Full house backfield. Presley, Grimes, McKinney. Pitch, it's McKinney. McKinney dancing and finally tripped up. A fine tackle made there by Paulsboro's Craig Bell. Well, despite the fine play by Bell, Mark, Woodbury continues to roll.
I'll tell you, watch, Nino Palomini, number 4, had a real shot at him right there, and he just eluded him.
Well, that's the quickness that you get from McKinney. 4 first downs on this opening drive for Woodbury. And one factor that may come into play here, Mark, is the heat on the field. Last week, Woodbury coaches talking about how many problems they had with cramping. Again, Presley running over tacklers.
Well, Kyle Kostrava, number 53, one of the two-way sophomores that Paulsboro is very, very high on, was the guy that kind of initially stuffed that play. And that's what you have to do because, again, Presley weighs 260, but he runs a sub 4.7, Rob. So you've got to stop him soon before he can get some momentum.
7 minutes, 27 seconds left. Again, the handoff to McKinney. He tries to break it back outside, but that hole is closed quickly by Paulsboro.
Tremendous play by Mike Smith coming in there, number 50. Again, we talk about the sophomores. He's another two-way starting sophomore, 6 foot, about 215, and really stuffed him. Watch you see 50 taking on some tacklers and coming in before he's able to cut. That's a great play.
Third down now and 5. This is the longest third down play thus far on the drive for the Thundering Herd. Miller again with Presley in the backfield, and joining him now is Charles Smith. A pitch, it's McKinney. He can throw the ball, he throws it up, has a man, in and out of the hands of Kyle Harvey. So, Zach Valentine pulling out all the stops here for Woodbury. That'll bring up a 4th down, and one area that Paulsboro has a huge advantage would be the kicking game.
Absolutely. And, McKinney, there was some talk about moving him to quarterback this year because, again, they wanted to get him some touches, so they're confident in his ability to throw the ball.
Zach Valentine, in my conversations with him before the game, kind of tipped his hand. He says, McKinney can throw the ball well, too. So, 4th down here and 5, and this is a big play for this Paulsboro defense.
I remember they had the screen to McKinney before, and he was wide open on the left side. He's lining up on the right this time.
He's in motion now, and Miller with the fake, has some time, throws deep into the end zone, has a man, and he is out of bounds. Unable to keep his feet in was Brian Duffield. A nice pass by Miller to get it just over the defender, but Duffield unable to keep 1 foot in bounds.
Here's the thing, and we've seen this a lot. Paulsboro with a young team getting dominated early on, but doesn't allow any points. When you get a chance against this team, you have to capitalize.
Well, and speaking with Jim Pandolfo, one of the assistant coaches for Paulsboro, he said the first series is going to be critical for us because this is our first week. There you saw Earl Pearson, first-year starter here for Paulsboro, and the handoff inside and shut down quickly here by Darren Miles. Strike that by Jerry Jefferson. So Nino Palameni, the ball carrier. Here you see our backs and receivers, White, Billig, Jamal St. John, Steve Assay, and Jeremy Tarpley. Your offensive line, it's Blyler, Aaron Benny, Kyle Kostrava, Craig Dick, and Mike Smith.
Again, Kostrava and Smith, 2 of the sophomores on this line, the rest seniors.
Well, it's a young line, as you mentioned. They said Kyle Kostrava is really the leader of that line. Smart and very intense. 2nd down, back to pass. Pearson with time, gets a rush across the middle, and a sea of Woodbury jerseys, and I don't know how that wasn't picked off, Mark.
Well, Pearson was going to Jeremy Tarpley all the way. There were 3 defenders on him.
Here you see the defensive line of Woodbury. Brandon Muse, huge there. Justin Elmore, Jerry Jefferson, and David Robinson. Your linebackers, Chris Presley, Brian Duffield, and Kyle Miller. Presley, we've spoken about. Marvin McKinney, Charles Smith, Anthony Ciccolone, and Kyan Grimes. Great speed in the secondary for Woodbury. So already a big 3rd down here for Paulsboro. And it'll be Pearson. Play action pass, rolling out. And a nice little look-in pattern, and that'll be enough for a 1st down as Jamal St. John, one of the fine wideouts here for Paulsboro, comes up with the reception.
And St. John and Asay are 2 of the returning starters. That's where this team has experience at receiver. But watch how St. John comes back for the ball. And that was the key that time.
One of the things you'll see this afternoon, Mark, is 2 teams that are very well coached. Glenn Howard and Zach Valentine always have 2 teams that are very fundamentally sound. 1st down and 10 here for Paulsboro. I formation.
Here you go.
And the handoff now. Not much there for Ryan White. White, a senior, as we mentioned, just 5'8", 175 pounds. And Marvin McKinney, as you see, made the tackle on the play.
You talk about coaches. This is Zach Valentine's 2nd year, but Glenn Howard, 151 and 22. And I think before it's all said and done, he'll be the best ever in South Jersey history.
Well, this is a program that has so much success and so much pride. And there you see the tackle made there by Woodbury.
The Woodbury speed. See, they like to string it out, and that's what they did. A really nice job that time. I saw Miller come up there.
This Woodbury team can match Paulsboro's speed undoubtedly. And again, a quick pitch now out to the outside. Ryan White still on his feet, and he'll pick up enough for a first down. So about a 10-yard carry for Ryan White. And Paulsboro now starting to get some grease on their axles.
Well, Kyle Harvey, number 8 for Woodbury, tried to turn him back in. Watch as he's looking going in there and gets the step outside. And that's a good job of not clipping that time. You'll see a lot of clips on those plays. And Harvey tries to cut him in, and it's late.
First down and 10, Paulsboro at their own 40-yard line. In motion for Paulsboro, Jeremy Tarpley. Inside handoff here. Picking up 3 or 4 for the Red Raiders, it's Brian Billig. Billig, another one of these running backs that this Paulsboro staff really likes. Hard-nosed, good blocker. He's someone who's put in his time like a lot of these Paulsboro players and now getting his opportunity to shine.
This is a really interesting mix on this team because it's a lot of seniors and a lot of sophomores. Not a whole lot from the junior class. So, and even a lot of the seniors, as you mentioned, Rob, are first-year starters, so they don't have a lot of experience.
Second down here for the Red Raiders. Again, the power I formation in motion. It's Steve Say. Penalty flag rains down.
Offense, 5-yard penalty, repeat second down.
Delay a game for the Red Raiders. These are the type of mistakes you're going to have from a young team, although Pearson is a senior, but starting for the first time in his career here at Paulsboro. Long second down here for Paulsboro. As we mentioned, already playoff implications in the very first game of the year for Paulsboro. Seemed to be confusion there, and a quick pitch. Trying to cut it back inside is Ryan White, but again, you had about 4 or 5 guys in motion there. It looked like something out of Canadian Football League.
Well, Kyle Miller did a tremendous job of just shrugging off a block and making that one-on-one tackle.
Well, Miller, your weak side linebacker here.
Look at him. Coming right up there, and I meant to say that Kyle Harvey actually took on the blocker and enabled Miller to come in to make the tackle.
About 2:40 left now. Back to pass, Pearson with time. No pressure at all. Nice pass, finds a man. And knocked down finally is Paulsboro's Brian Billig. But Pearson showing that composure and really threading the needle in what could have been a very dangerous pass.
Well, here's the thing. He had all day to throw the ball. This Paulsboro offensive line is doing a tremendous job in pass protection. Look at that. Smith right there in the front that you saw. No pressure whatsoever that time.
Well, what goes unnoticed in that play is Billig shielding the defender, able to take in that pass, and Paulsboro's drive continues now with 2:15 left in this first quarter. Pearson with the pitch. It's going to be Ryan White. White cuts it back inside and literally bowls over Justin Elmore. Now, Elmore goes 6'1", 240, but White showing his strength at just 5'8", 175, getting the better of that exchange. 10th play of the drive here for Paulsboro. And about 5 to go as they are now well within Woodbury territory. Pearson, quick hitter inside. Not much there for Brian Billig. Well, tune in Friday night at 8 p.m. as CN8 Sports brings you exciting Big East soccer action. Longtime rivals Boston College and UConn meet for the first time since last year's Big East championship game. That's Friday night, 8 p.m., right here on CN8. Handoff again, and absolutely shut down is Paulsboro's Courtney Bass.
I'll tell you, Brandon Muse, who might be the best two-way lineman for this Woodbury team at 6'1", 264, number 78, did not yield any ground on that play. And that's a big, big stop for the Thundering Herd.
So Paulsboro now forced to punt as just 30 seconds remain in this quick first quarter. Bad snap, handling it smoothly as Nino Palomini gets away a nice punt. Fielding it, McKinney dancing in his own end and now tries to find his way down the sideline. We step away with 18 seconds remaining in this first quarter. We're scoreless here at Paulsboro High School. Welcome back to Paulsboro High School. Inside handoff, loses a couple yards here for the Thundering Herd, and they will likely be content to simply allow this clock to elapse.
Mark Alger, number 67, did a great job stuffing that play that time. Again, another sophomore for this Paulsboro team.
Well, that'll do it here in the first quarter. Woodbury and Paulsboro are scoreless as we head to break.
For the first drive of the season, they bent.
Welcome back to Paulsboro High School. We start the second quarter. We are scoreless. Chris Presley, quick hitter inside, and finds his way into that Paulsboro secondary. A big pickup, but short of the first down. Don't forget, coming up at halftime, we'll have Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield halftime highlights and stats. Here's the handoff to Presley.
That's just power, and you give him a little bit of room to run. It got to get him low like that. You certainly aren't going to be able to tackle him high. And Presley, it's interesting, has never had the real breakout game in his career against Paulsboro. I think he's ready to try to have one here today.
Fake to Presley. Miller keeps. He won't get anywhere. A big defensive stop by this Paulsboro defense, and that will likely force Woodbury to punt.
Boy, Castrava did a nice job coming in there. Now we see why they are so happy with this sophomore. Also, Hodges, 82, did a good job of holding things up, but Castrava fighting through there.
Back to receive the punt, Ryan White, and it'll be McKinney who does the punting for Woodbury, so there's always that threat of a fake.
The only way they'll fake it here is with a bad snap.
McKinney with plenty of time, a low line drive, and that is over the head of White. Look at this punt. And White will simply just let it be down by Woodbury all the way back to their own 20-yard line. So about a 55-yard punt. And you see just one other tool in the arsenal of that man, Marvin McKinney. That's a big play right there by McKinney, because with White standing on his 45, if he's able to return that, Paulsboro's got a very short field.
McKinney at 148 is slightly smaller than his cousin Bryant McKinney of the Minnesota Vikings, who's
slightly smaller than McKinney's left leg.
Goes about, what, 350?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
White now cuts it back inside, still on his feet. Finally, Miller able to push him out of bounds. But you see some of the things that man, Ryan White, brings to this Paulsboro offense.
Well, what I like about him is how he makes people miss. That time, Kyan Grimes, number 2, had a pretty good shot at him, and White was able to just deke him. There you see, right there, just lowered his shoulder, made the fake, and kept going. That's an excellent play.
1st and 10, Paulsboro on the march. Fumble there by Pearson, picked up. It's going to be Woodbury football. Pearson with the fake handoff, but Woodbury's David Robinson falls on the football. Big turnover here for the Thundering Herd. And Robinson may be shaken up on the play.
The snap wasn't bad. He just pulled it out, and as you see, that's a great replay right there. And Robinson didn't try to run with it like some linemen. They get excited, just fell on the ball and gained possession. But it was just Pearson trying to pull that out, Rob, and that's when it happened.
Well, we mentioned how critical turnovers would be this afternoon. We'll see whether Woodbury can make them pay. Instead, Woodbury calls timeout. So again, a big momentum swing here as Woodbury stopped in their own end. Great defensive stand by Paulsboro. McKinney gets that huge punt away, and now a turnover by Paulsboro. And Zach Valentine wants to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
By the way, we talk about these two teams being major Group 1 contenders once again, but this is also for the Colonial Conference Patriot Division. And the winner of this game, most people think, will be the champion of that division, although the people at Haddon Heights are saying, hey, we have the most experienced team back. We may make a little run at this thing as well.
Now, you talk about Haddon Heights. How good would that team be with Karan Barsh, who we saw last week?
Right. I mean, how good would any team in the Colonial be with him? Of course, Karan with Camden Catholic, who we saw beat Morristown. And how about Morristown coming back and really putting it to Woodrow Wilson, a team that I thought was going to be a top team this year.
Well, we're talking high school football. Don't forget, we've got more great high school football coming up next Saturday on Comcast Varsity Sports Zone when the Deptford Spartans take on the Delsea Crusaders at 4:30. If you're looking for some of the region's best hard-hitting high school football action, keep it tuned to CN8 and get in the zone. Once again, Deptford at Delsea. And again, knock down the pass attempt here. Let's quickly talk, Mark, about this game next week, Deptford and Delsea. That may determine who wins the Tri-County.
A lot of people think those are the two in the Royal Division this year. I'll tell you what, Tarpley, number 84, almost had himself a play right there. Again, you cannot throw that screen ball so nonchalantly. You have to get it over a guy like Tarpley, who at 6'4", has a very, very big wingspan.
About the size of Roy Tarpley. 10 minutes, 12 seconds left. First half, scoreless. Presley with the ball. Now still pulling his way over Paulsboro tacklers. And again, we see, Mark, how it's never going to be that first guy that stops Chris Presley.
You know what's interesting about him, too? When he's running in this offense, he's the up guy, so he really doesn't have a back who's blocking for him. Right there, he has to take on a tackler, and he's dragging people 5 yards there.
So it takes 4 tacklers to get down. Big Chris Presley, we mentioned 6'1", 260 pounds. I saw some Rutgers coaches here taking a look at Presley.
I give it to him again.
Instead, it's McKinney. McKinney tries to cut it back inside, but Paulsboro will have none of it, and that's a nice play by Nino Palomini.
Yeah, Palomini, and Paulsboro's been getting some very, very active play by its linebackers.
Don't forget that Palomini broke his foot last year, so this is a big year for him. Hopes to go on and maybe kick in college. 4th down, big play for Woodbury. Now, Mark, if you're Woodbury, do you go to the air here, or you go to the ground with the talented Marvin McKinney?
They've had open receivers. I think you definitely go to the air.
They are 0 for 1 on 4th down conversions thus far this afternoon. All kinds of problems here as trying to draw them off with the hard snap count is Miller. Instead, he burns his own team.
Dead ball. False start. Offense 5 yards from the previous spot. Repeat, 4th down.
This may change the thinking, Mark, as to whether or not you go for it or punt.
I don't know, Rob. The ball at the 35, I'd still go for it.
Well, Zach Valentine's going to punt, and I'm going to have to side with Zach Valentine, not to mention the fact he's got a Super Bowl ring, so that certainly means something. 8.
Get on the 10! Get on the 10!
And change left. Bad snap. McKinney gets it, now punts it away. High punt, and Paulsboro lets it drop, and it'll be down inside the 20-yard line. So McKinney utilizes that athletic ability to get out of a little bit of trouble. 8 minutes, 27 seconds remain in this first half. We're scoreless at Paulsboro. Welcome back to Paulsboro High School. Woodbury and Paulsboro in a critical Colonial Conference matchup. Still scoreless here, and Ryan White calls timeout. So, interesting turn of events here. Each time Woodbury and Paulsboro have...
Timeout, Paulsboro.
Each time they've gotten the ball after an exchange, they've been forced to call timeouts. And, you know, you kind of understand it maybe a little bit more from the Paulsboro side since this is their first game of the year.
Rob, that punt was a net gain of about 16 yards. There's no way I would have tried it on 4th down. The receivers have been getting open. I just would have given it a shot.
Well, you know, this is where we disagree because I talked about how I like the idea of punting. Even though it's a net game of just 16 yards, you're extending the field against a very good Paulsboro team. And I think that Coach Valentine and his staff really like their chances defensively against that man, Glenn Howard, and the Paulsboro Red Raiders. And I think the tougher you make it, the more they feel like, yeah, we can pull this one out.
That's a couple times now Woodbury's been in Paulsboro territory with a pretty good chance there and hasn't been able to catch. And that's the thing. And with a young team like this, they may get pushed around a little bit. But if you don't put them in the ground, they're going to come back. We've seen this so much with Paulsboro.
I think that's an excellent point, Mark. There you see Zach Valentine. The second season, he was 6-4 last year. Of course, he won the opener against Haddonfield. But as this game progresses, the youth gains more and more confidence, so you have to put them away early. 1st and 10 for Paulsboro. Tarpley in motion. Pitch. Big hole here for Paulsboro's back. Daniel Sharper, just a sophomore. And as you mentioned, Mark, so many talented sophomores on this Paulsboro team.
And a lot of them are going to see the ball here. They're going to get the ball. Watch Tarpley, 84. Boy, doing a really nice job on the outside. Just enough that time to get a piece of Brandon Muse. That's a good job by Tarpley.
And again, that was actually Vincent Scott. But he's also a sophomore. 7 minutes, 50 seconds left. High formation for the Red Raiders. In motion, it's Terrence Rothmiller. Hand off inside, getting his way and bowling through the line for Paulsboro, Craig Bell. And that's what Bell brings to this offense. First and 10 for Paulsboro.
Paulsboro line is starting to get a little bit of confidence here. Tremendous pull that time.
It looked like Mike Smith who really blew open that Woodbury line. And Craig Bell, I think, Mark, you could have actually gotten through that line. In motion, Tarpley. Woodbury resets the defense.
What if this is a delay again, Rob?
Dead ball, false start, offense. 5-yard penalty, still 1st down.
When Paulsboro has been shifting and everything like that, that's when they've had the delay before. Now this, the full start.
See Zach Valentine, who was a fine linebacker in his own right during his playing days, and Glenn Howard, who, of course, played locally for the USFL, Philadelphia Stars, and Sean Landena, one of the only remaining USFL players still in the NFL. Teammate of Howard's. Handoff again, and this time the hole closes quickly on Vincent Scott. Woodbury had the first 4 downs of this, first downs of this game, Mark, and quickly it turned. Paulsboro getting the next 5.
Yeah, Jerry Jefferson was in there. Made that first initial hit that time. And it's both teams. Woodbury has some size, but these big guys can move a little bit.
2nd down. Long way to go here for the Red Raiders. Pearson has had good coverage. Little swing pass and able to trip up Scott was Kyan Grimes.
And I'll tell you, had Grimes not done that, Vincent Scott, who again is one of these sophomores we talked about, the Paulsboro is very high on, may have had a little bit of room there. That was an excellent play by Grimes.
I like the thinking of Howard on this call. Allow Scott to use his athletic ability, but Grimes stepped up to the challenge.
Absolutely, and he had a blocker there, but again for Paulsboro that time, number 53, Kostrava, couldn't quite get there, and that's just great team speed.
3rd and 16 for Paulsboro, 2 for 3 this afternoon on third down conversions. Pearson back to pass, throws it up into the flat, looking for a man, it's caught! Finds Terrence Rothmiller, big throw there by Pearson. And that ball seemed to hang in the air for an eternity, but it was right on the money for Rothmiller. 22-yard gain, 1st and 10 for Paulsboro.
Well, what made this pass even more impressive was the fact that he had number 78, Brandon Muse, in his face, so he probably had to throw it even a little higher. Look at Muse with those big arms.
It looks like he actually threw it under the left arm of Muse. Kind of sidearm slinger there.
And actually, Asay thought he overthrew it, but it was right there.
Fumble again, and this time it bounces back into the hands of Pearson. So same scenario as last time, Mark, where it was a fake, and somehow the fake turned into a mistake. Well, there you see Pearson. He's had a good afternoon throwing the ball, 4 for 5 and 48 yards. Loss of 1, 2nd and 11. Pearson now, quick pitch, it's White. White finding some room to operate into the secondary, on and on, 1st down, Paulsboro.
Paulsboro gives a little option look that time. And Pearson, sometimes the quarterback will hold the ball too much on the option. He got rid of this thing right away. See, he read it. He saw 2 linemen coming right to him. He saw White with an open lane, and there goes White. Presley can't get him. You see 22 running after him.
1st down and 10. Paulsboro continuing to roll now as we approach the 4-minute mark. Pearson. It's White. White dancing in his backfield. He's held up and stopped by big Brandon Muse. Muse over 260 pounds.
Muse and Jefferson were in there, but the guy that really made the play was Pat McMahon, who shot through there and took on a couple of blockers, allowing the lineman to be able to make the tackles that time.
2nd and 10. This is a big series for the Woodbury defense.
And remember, Palomini has excellent range, so you don't have to get too close.
Here's White with the pitch, finds White on his feet into the secondary, and finally ridden out of bounds by Anthony Caccioloni. Big carry there as White able to pick up more than enough for the 1st down. 9 carries and 60 yards already for Ryan White.
Boy, again, Pearson doing a fantastic job of holding the ball to the last second that time. And then you saw on the top screen, they say they're number 10 with the block.
10th play of this drive. Pearson hands off inside into the secondary, still on his feet. Finally brought down as Brian Billick. First and goal at the 5. Paulsboro starting to get this offense in high gear.
There you see the end of it that time, and Billick very hard. No more for his blocking, but a very tough inside runner.
In motion, it's Deandra Folks. We haven't seen much of him today. Talented wide receiver. Pearson with Scott. Pitches Scott, and he is hit immediately. Penalty flag still on his feet is Scott. And we'll see who the call is against here.
I thought there was a lot of motion there by Paulsboro that time.
Well, they're discussing the penalty with Woodbury, so this will be against Paulsboro.
Well, it's interesting because it's about a 2-yard loss, and you wonder if
we have an illegal formation. Only 6 men on the line. Offense. It's a 5-yard penalty from the previous spot. Repeat, second down.
Don't forget, coming up at halftime, we'll have Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield halftime highlights and stats. Third penalty of the afternoon for Paulsboro. 2:31 left in this first half. We are scoreless. Timeout called on the field, and this will be charged to Woodbury. That is their second, so they have one remaining. Zach Valentine wants to come out and speak to this defense.
Well, the other thing, I think it's a good timeout for this. A lot of these guys going both ways on defense, and to give them a little bit of a rest right now.
That's a good point, Mark.
We said Paulsboro on this drive, which began on its own 19-yard line, getting a lot of tremendous offensive line surge.
So first and goal at the 10-yard line. And Paulsboro starting to look a little bit more united on offense. Again, they did not play last week. They had the bye in the very first week of the season. Only were able to get in 2 scrimmages in the preseason. So they haven't had a lot of game experience, and that's a decided disadvantage when you have a young team.
It is, and I'll tell you, Rob, you and I were here the other day for a soccer game, and the game got over, and it's well after 6, and those football players were still out there. I don't know if anybody works at it harder than they do here at Paulsboro.
What a great tradition they have here at Paulsboro. Glenn Howard has done such a fine job with this program. You see Earl Pearson through the air, 4 for 5. We'll see if he hooks up through the air here. Pearson end around. This is nothing but trouble for Paulsboro, as sniffing it out is Woodbury's Brandon Muse. And that play just took so long to develop, Mark, and that's going to create problems now for this offense. Long second down, and it's goal to go.
You know, Muse, for a guy who weighs about 264, has pretty good speed, and there you see St. John can't get by him.
Second and goal at their own 24-yard line. Muse, the son of Jim Abundy, was a star here at Woodbury High School. Quick inside pass, right up the middle. Plenty of room to operate, still on his feet, going touchdown! Deandra Folks, we just mentioned the talent of that young man, but a penalty flag on the field.
That's coming back, it's a hold.
Well, Deandra Folks, certainly a playmaker for this team. Very quick, but all for naught.
Holding on the offense. 10-yard penalty from the spot of the foul. Repeat, second down.
Well, needless to say, Zach Valentine breathing a deep sigh of relief. And there you see Glenn Howard trying to figure out what he can do to get into this end zone. Some good play calling there once again.
Well, that must have come really downfield, Rob, because the spot of the foul was the 14. The ball's back to the 24. This is that delay that they like to do screen in there. It came somewhere, it might have been there at the far side of the screen there, I'm not sure, but it certainly came downfield with that hold.
Back to pass, Pearson across the middle, has a man wide open, tipped up, and picked off. McKinney picks it off into his own end zone, down towards the sideline, cutting back and finally brought down. But Pearson had a man across the middle. It was Steve Assay, tipped up in the air, and McKinney again shows his athleticism, picks it up, and a big turn of events here for the Thundering Herd.
Makes you wonder which side of the ball McKinney's more impressive on. And again, here's one thing. If you're Paulsboro and you're going in at halftime, your receivers are getting wide open on this defense. To say open, he was popped that time. And McKinney had the presence of mind to catch that tip.
Well, I tell you what, that young man, Earl Pearson, has done a tremendous job. He's now 4 for 6, but really should be 5 of 6. That was a beautiful pass, laid it into the hands of Asay and just unable to hold on. 1st and 10, Miller with time, throws it deep into the secondary, and there must have been a breakdown because the only people back there were wearing red.
I'm a little surprised at that call. I thought Woodbury now, I had wanted them to attack earlier. Now you stop the clock right now. If you're Paulsboro and you stop them here, you might be able to call a timeout.
Well, this time we're on the same page. I agree with you. Put it to the ground. They have not been effective in the air. Just 1 for 5. Use McKinney and eat up the clock. Go to the locker room and regroup.
I give it to Presley right here and just let him bowl over some people.
That's what they'll do. Presley stopped just past the line of scrimmage.
Now Paulsboro should call a timeout here.
And they did.
Timeout, Paulsboro.
As you see, 1:11 left in this first half. Chris Presley unable to pick up much. But once again, it took more than one man to bring down the big Chris Presley.
And remember last time when McKinney punted, they had that high snap. So Paulsboro's thinking about all this and maybe trying to get a special teams turnover if it can hold on 3rd down here.
You know, we talk about Presley as a football player, state champion, the shot put. What an athlete. Let's take a look at this interception, Mark, because this certainly has been the biggest play of the first half. We caught the tail end of that as it was off of the hands of the Paulsboro receiver. And there you see McKinney now, turns it upfield. And for a moment it looked like he had clear sailing, but Paulsboro able to come up and drive him down into the ground.
I'd like to see that again as it got to him that time, because from that angle it looked like the ball was slightly overthrown, but either way, McKinney made a tremendous play on that.
3rd down, handoff McKinney. Tries to string it outside, on his feet into the secondary, down the sideline. Finally driven out of bounds by Ainsland Carrera, but not before picking up a big chunk. 1st down and 10 for Woodbury. Now all of a sudden, from being in a defensive mode offensively, McKinney gives you an opportunity to maybe put some points on the board.
Paulsboro's done a good job in this first half of not letting him get outside and turn the corner. This is one of the rare times, and it shows you how dangerous he is when he can do that.
23-yard carry for McKinney. 1 minute, 3 seconds left. 44-yard line. Woodbury with the football. Miller rolls out, has time, still looking from behind, almost knocked out by Paulsboro's Tredell Hodges, but Miller will simply take the sack. And again, that's a sense of where you need to feel the rush of Paulsboro and just unload the football and start over.
I thought he momentarily had Curtis Stokes, number 15, open about 10 yards down the field. Didn't see it. But I'll tell you, I'd rather see him do that than have an errant pass. And that ball, he's got to protect that ball a little better, doesn't he, Rob?
I agree. Tredell Hodges would have made a gigantic play for this Paulsboro defense. Still able to stop Miller. Miller back to pass again, throws it up, and again just slings it into the secondary. And it's almost as if Miller's just throwing to an area, hoping that his wide receiver runs under it, as opposed to trying to hook up with a specific wideout. And that is picked off, so the first turnover here for Woodbury comes with just 9 seconds left in the first half. Now, I was going to say that's pretty much no harm, but with this Paulsboro offense, you never know.
Ainsley Carrera, you're right, gets the interception that time. And I don't know if you need to go for a home run there. Nobody, no white shirts within 5 yards of that. Carrera makes the pick, and I would expect Paulsboro to take a knee here.
9 seconds left. Ryan White in the backfield along with Brian Billig. And Pearson does take a knee. And Paulsboro content to simply run out the clock. Well, we've had an exciting first half of action here. Two teams that will have a major say in what happens in South Jersey Group 1 at the end of the year. It's been played strong, clean, and evenly. We'll head to break, scoreless. Welcome back to Paulsboro High School. We're at the half. Paulsboro and Woodbury are scoreless. Rob Christ along with Marc Narducci have an opportunity to take a look at some highlights from the first half. Obviously a defensive battle, and both teams trying to get off the first score, and it was Paulsboro who had a play that looked to be a touchdown, but instead a holding call called this one back.
And again, that holding call came on the 14-yard line, so it was well downfield. But Folks showing his electrifying ability. And there's the interception by McKinney.
McKinney able to pick off that pass after it was tipped by the wide receiver. Don't forget, Woodbury also had a touchdown that was called back. It was ruled that the receiver, Duffield, was out of bounds. Let's take a look at our Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield halftime stats. And you see, relatively even except for the passing yards, Mark. Pearson has been effective.
Yes, he has. And the other one thing that's really a key, and it's not on there, is that Woodbury's only been penalized one time for 5 yards. So that's been a key. Both of them, as you see, have been able to run the ball, and both of them will continue to try to do that. I think that Paulsboro had a lot of receivers open, though, and Woodbury's pass defense has to get a little tighter.
That's a good point. Woodbury really having some struggles in their secondary. Don't forget that Woodbury started this game and really looked to control the football. Got off very well, and things were quickly shut down by Paulsboro. After that, the Red Raiders had the best of play.
Right, and I think it took a little bit of that time for the young players to get used to this. They got a quarter under their belt, and you're right, Rob, they really came on.
Well, these halftime stats were brought to you by Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield, making healthcare work. We'll have the start of the second half for you right after this. Welcome back to Paulsboro High School. Scoreless as we start the third quarter, just about to get things underway. Rob Christ along with Marc Narducci. Paulsboro will receive here to start things in the second half.
Rob, I think a key is going to be how both teams stand up physically in this heat. A lot of people going both ways, and I think that's going to be a real key here in the second half.
Just call me Ed, Mark. Ball punted down the middle, and we're underway here at the 30-yard line. And on his feet, good field position to start things here for Jake Tropia and the Paulsboro Red Raiders. Here you see Earl Pearson. Relatively successful first half. Pearson, as we mentioned, throwing for 48 yards in that first half. One pickoff, and that after the tip ball. Also put the ball on the ground one time on a fake handoff.
I think we also saw, especially second quarter, this Paulsboro offensive line getting a very good surge against Woodbury's defensive line.
Back to pass, Pearson, and quickly finds DeAndre Knowles, or Folks. And as you mentioned, Mark, we may see Paulsboro go to the air a lot more here in the second half.
Well, again, that was that delay. That was really the same play that Folks had scored on in the first half that was called back. Great protection, and St. John just coming underneath, getting the ball and then working, and there was no one near him. They continue to find seams in this Woodbury defense. And he did a good job of picking that up, obviously, before it hit the ground.
Pitch, it's White. And White stopped after a gain of about one.
I'll tell you, Brandon Muse has had some game today for Woodbury. 6'1", 264, number 78 there. Been able to chase those backs outside. He
is the heaviest player on that Woodbury team, but
Look, he fought off 2 blocks there just to interrupt you, Rob, and then came in at the end of that.
I was going to say, don't let that fool you, Mark. Very athletic and a big, big part of this Woodbury defense. Pearson back to pass again, quick slant, and that is knocked down. So Woodbury holds here on the first series in the second half. Glenn Howard looking to make some adjustments, trying to get this Paulsboro team on the board.
Well, one thing is he is seeing that when he calls for a pass play, his receivers are pretty wide open.
Ball on the ground, and able to get it away is Palomini. McKinney picks it off the bounce, and he'll just find his way out of bounds. So Woodbury will have their first series here inside their own 25-yard line, first down and 10. And it's been a well-played first half. And there you see Miller, who's had some difficulties when throwing the football.
Well, Woodbury's only completed 1 pass in the first half. And again, I still think establish Presley up the middle, try to go McKinney outside. But obviously Paulsboro realizes that as well.
Miller just 1 for 6 in that first half and did have an interception. Here's Miller on the option, keeps, and nothing doing there. I tell you, Paulsboro did a great job because Miller on that option really had nowhere to go, and he had no one to pitch to. Well defensed by Paulsboro.
Well, the one thing you tell a quarterback on the option, if you don't have someone to pitch to, don't try to force it. And Miller was able to just eat it. There you see Presley's numbers for the day.
As you see, 35 yards. Presley has had an impact defensively as well. And again, 3 backs, Smith, McKinney, and Presley, and it's going to be Smith. Smith brought down and fumble. Paulsboro falls on the football as Charles Smith puts it on the ground on his very first carry of the afternoon. A big turnover here for the Red Raiders.
Looked like Hodges got it, but Nino Palomini, there you see Hodges coming off. Nino Palomini made the big hit on that play, as he has, and the Paulsboro linebackers always active. Watch there, number 4 right there, tackling him high.
Ball may have actually been knocked loose just before that, and Palomini finished the deal. I formation again. Pearson hands off to White. White met immediately, and he may not have gotten back to the original line of scrimmage. Had an opportunity, Mark, to have to talk with Randy Melvin, line coach at Rutgers University. Just said he's out here taking a look at all of the personnel. It's good to see that the state of New Jersey's university out here making a statement, trying to recruit some of the fine talent that they have here in South Jersey.
Look, they've been doing it the last couple of years. What happened was the previous era, the Terry Shea era, didn't do it, and that hurt the program a lot.
Pearson, pass outside, caught and brought down. DeAndre Folks made the catch, but that illustrates the arm strength of Pearson. Third down and 5 for the Red Raiders.
Also was a very, very good tackle by McKinney, who was out there on an island with him. These are the types of plays, you break one here, you can go for 6, and McKinney's got to give him a little ground because he has to respect the speed, but that's a great tackle.
Pearson likes to drop down a little bit when he throws that ball. Sidearm slinger. Pitch, White. White into the secondary, stopped, still on his feet. He'll have enough for a first down. So a big run there by Ryan White. And you have to like the way that White runs this ball with such determination. Diminutive, yet strong.
I'll tell you, I've also liked Tarpley's blocking at tight end that time. He had Muse one-on-one. Didn't bowl him over, but just got enough of him to give White the room he needed.
First down and 10 at the 15-yard line. It's Billig and White in the backfield. White, Billig the lead blocker, not much there. White still on his feet. And again, those are the type of carries that wear down a defense. White just refusing to quit.
Well, he took McKinney on. Again, has McKinney done just about everything on both sides of the ball today?
And special teams.
And special teams. Well, McKinney comes up and does a nice job of forcing this play and gets a hit, which could have been a loss right there along with Presley. And he bounces off both of them. And White, who weighs all of about 175 pounds.
Second down. Hand off White again. White still on his feet, pushing his way forward. And as we mentioned before, the big advantage in this game, if there is one, is the kicking game. Paulsboro's Palomini, a very good one. Third down and 2. Big stop here for Woodbury.
I would still keep it on the ground if I'm Paulsboro.
I agree with you.
Yeah, you have a good place kicker. You're moving the ball on the ground.
Isolated on the left to Steve Assay. Instead, handoff inside. It's White. And it'll be very close to a first down.
Wait, again, second effort by White.
First down for the Red Raiders. First and goal. And they've been here before, Mark. They tried an end around that lost them a big chunk last time. I don't think we'll see that this series. White now 15 carries for 75 yards. Pitch, White, and cut down after a gain of maybe 1 yard.
There's McKinney again. He's just coming up and making every play. And again, not expecting Paulsboro to pass there on first down. Look at the little guy. They list him at 148. That might be generous, but look at him coming up and forcing that. He beat his blocker to the spot that time.
Tremendous quickness for McKinney. We mentioned before, White his afternoon. Billig again in motion, and now the option. Pitch to White. White knocked down. Big hit laid out there by Woodbury's Anthony Cacciolone.
Also, Charles Smith, number 10, did a nice job too of, again, forcing that play inside. Pearson doing a good job of never holding onto the ball too long. See? Smith forced him inside, and then Cacciolone made the tackle.
Third down now for Paulsboro, 5 for 7. Very successful on third down conversions. And a lot of time that tells who controlled the game. Pearson getting flushed from behind, throws it up, has a man. It's caught. Jeremy Tarpley, the tight end, has put Paulsboro on the board. They lead 6-0. Pearson flushed out of the pocket, felt the pressure, threw it up, and Tarpley, 6'4", able to bring it down in a maze of players. And now Palomini will come on to attempt the point after. Kick is up, and the kick is good. Paulsboro leads with 4:47 left in this third quarter, 7-0. We head to break. Welcome back to Paulsboro High School. Paulsboro leading Woodbury 7-0. A drive consisting of 9 plays, 25 yards. And on that drive, Ryan White, 7 carries for 16 yards. It was Pearson with the touchdown pass to Tarpley to cap the drive. And now Palomini will kick off with McKinney deep for Woodbury. Long kick. And back at about his 5, McKinney. McKinney hesitates. And now brought down. Let's take a look at this touchdown, Mark. Pearson really felt the pressure and finally got it away.
Well, they've had success in this, really in the right flat, as he's having Smith rush on the backside there and gets it off just before he's able to do it. And Tarpley wide open. Rob, we've been saying it, the receivers have been wide open all afternoon. I think the play action may have held Woodbury back a little bit.
But the advantage of being so close to the end zone, you have an opportunity to make up for fighting up. Well, obviously, that touchdown, Mark, has really given momentum given Paulsboro a big lift.
Well, again, Palomini, who just kicked the extra point, he's got very good speed. And again, it's very, very hard to run laterally against this team. You've got to go north to south because they'll have people to make plays.
Lone setback for the Herd. Presley. Handoff. Presley. Stopped at the line but continues to rush forward. We're going to have a holding penalty here. But that's what Chris Presley does. He just continues to pound on you. And it's going to take more than one man to stop big Chris Presley.
Also saw, yep. That was near the end of the play that happened, Rob.
Face mask, 5-yard penalty on the defense, first down.
Well, after that big stop on first down, Paulsboro unable to hold, and an additional 5 yards tacked on to the run by Presley. That's 5 penalties now for Paulsboro. Woodbury's just been flagged once.
It came right before he went down on that play.
And off again, and this time it looks like Kyan Grimes is not going to go anywhere.
I think the biggest way to wear defense down is to put Presley on him, and you might get to the point where you want to give him a couple of carries in a row and really try to wear people down, because he certainly will bring a number of tacklers with him.
I agree, and then you get it to McKinney after your defense is worn down, and really opens things up. There you see Glenn Howard, head coach of this vaunted Paulsboro program. In motion, McKinney. Back to pass, it's Miller. Miller looking, now flushed out of the pocket. Has time, being chased, still on his feet, and he looks like he'll pick up enough for the first down. So wisely, Miller tucks it under his arm and picks up the first down for Woodbury.
Outstanding elusiveness that time by Miller. It looked like a couple times he was going to get brought down by the rush. Again, sometimes it's hard to feel it on the backside. Look at Muse with that little block there to give him a little piece of room. And then Smith coming in right here, number 10. You don't see it, but he came in and made one last block.
16 yards on the carry. And here's Presley. Presley again just carrying men with him. And he picks up about 6. So we'll see whether they feature Presley on this drive.
I don't know if Presley has carried the ball in consecutive plays all game. But I'll tell you one thing, and I know he's going both ways, and he's certainly a little bit tired too, but I would keep feeding him right now.
He has 51 yards thus far. Full house backfield here. Hand off, and it's going to be McKinney. McKinney is brought down right at the line of scrimmage.
Wow, Palomini just shot through there to make the tackle. Almost got him on the face mask that time. Palomini has made so many big tackles.
Woodbury 3 for 6 on third down conversions, a 50% clip, not too bad. Stretch wide right, it's Curtis Stokes. Again, 3 running backs for Woodbury. And now it's the option, a pitch, and tripping up and slipping is Charles Smith. So he's had a rough afternoon after putting the ball on the ground. He tripped himself up and came up short on that big third down carry.
And he had some room because McKinney had cleared out the way. Watch number 4, top screen. He'll have his man blocked right there. He had the room and just tripped up.
So McKinney now forced to punt it away. Ball spotted at midfield.
Now, if ever a time to even think of a fake punt, this would be it. They've had high snaps on those punts.
McKinney able to get it away. A pretty good punt here. It's going to be White. And they'll bring it back to about the 28-yard line where it'll be first down and 10 for the Red Raiders.
How about White not fair catching that ball, just going for it?
Gutsy effort. That's one of those, when you're the head coach, you say no, 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 yes, yes, yes.
Well, he's limping off a little bit. They really need him, especially on defense.
Zach Valentine, your head coach of the Woodbury Thundering Herd, played linebacker for both the Eagles and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bradley wears a Super Bowl ring earned while he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Which was his rookie year. He probably thought, hey, I'll be doing this a lot.
First down and 10, just 47 seconds remaining. Quick hitter inside, Billick quickly into the secondary, still on his feet, and he'll be knocked down at about his 48-yard line. Billick has had some nice runs this afternoon. 4 carries, 40 yards.
Wow, and again, a tremendous block at the line of scrimmage by Castrava, 53, leading things off. And Billick runs as tough as he blocks. Look at them. They're picking him up finally, and then they finally drop him.
2 of his carries, gains of 20 and 15 yards. Good outing thus far for Billick. First and 10 at their own 44. Paulsboro hands off, and it's going to be Scott. He'll pick up 2 or 3 yards there, and that'll do it here for the third quarter. So Paulsboro able to get on the scoreboard on the strength of a Pearson to Tarpley connection, and they lead things here as we head to break. Paulsboro on top of Woodbury, 7-0. Welcome back to Paulsboro High School. The Red Raiders on top of Woodbury, 7-0 on a brilliant summer afternoon. Hey, all you college football fans, CN8 continues its college football coverage next Saturday as number 5 ranked Villanova takes on number 6 ranked Northeastern. The action starts at 12:30 p.m. only on CN8.
Hey, one thing you know when they're going to watch that game, they'll see a few passes when one of Andy Talley's teams is playing, won't they?
Absolutely. Villanova certainly has their fair share of players from this area. And Andy Talley has built himself a nice little program there at Villanova, and a great little rivalry between Nova and Delaware.
Beat Division 1A Rutgers last year, beat Temple this year.
Not too shabby. Second down and 8 here as we start the fourth quarter. Hand off, fake Pearson now. Pearson on his feet. And a big block as one of the Woodbury players is laid out on the field, and he is still down. So out comes the training staff for Woodbury. And I'm not sure if we'll have an opportunity to take a look at this on the replay. Let's take a look.
Well, Pearson has done a fine job. That was Miller right there who got the block.
And that certainly changes the dynamics here, Mark, because then do you allow McKinney to play quarterback for you if Miller is hurt?
I don't know. Actually, it was not Miller. It's
No, it was Kyle Miller. He's going off the field now.
okay. But there's still someone else down as well.
That's a Woodbury player. You may have some cramping here. We talked about the heat, and it looks like they're working on the left leg of a Paulsboro player. I asked the coaching staff, Butch Gale, the offensive coordinator for Woodbury, how do you counter the cramping problems that you had last week? Do you opt for the Eagles route of trying pickle juice? He said, no, just Gatorade. And thus far, we've seen very little cramping from the Woodbury side, and this is really the first instance of cramping from Paulsboro. Paulsboro players still being worked on. And it's... Well, don't forget, we've got more great high school football coming up next Saturday on Comcast, Varsity Sports Zone, when the Deptford Spartans take on the Delsea Crusaders at 4:30. If you're looking for some of the region's best hard-hitting high school football action, keep it tuned to CN8 and get in the zone. Well, we mentioned before, Mark, that that's going to be a good one. Deptford and Delsea. Delsea has been so successful over these past few years, but Deptford certainly boasts an array of talent this season.
No question. Mike Green, one of the premier linebacker running backs in South Jersey, leading the way for Deptford. That's Castrava, who's down, by the way. And what a two-way game this sophomore has had for Paulsboro.
Well, in speaking with some of the Paulsboro coaching staff prior to the game, they really had a lot of great things to say about this young man. Really think that he's going to develop into a premier player, just as many of the other players here at Paulsboro have done. Just a sophomore, and he is coming off the field. So that, in fact, may not have been a cramp. It looks far more serious than that. As you mentioned, Mark, that'll be a big loss for this Paulsboro team.
Looks like Jay Rutter's coming in now, replacing him at center.
New quarterback here for Paulsboro. It's Paul Giordano. So a new wrinkle for the Red Raiders. Giordano, a little trouble with the snap. Quick handoff inside, and he's short of the first down is Billig. So 4th down and about 2. And if you're Glenn Howard, you have a little decision here. Do you play it safe or do you roll the dice?
I would punt it myself, but I don't see special teams going in that game for them.
Well, again, Mark, I have to agree with you. Punt the football. Your defense has held thus far, but
remember,
Howard's going to.
They may try to draw them off sides too, Rob. So let's see.
In motion, Folks. Handoff, it's a pitch. It's going to be Scott. Scott into the secondary. Very close to a first down, and it looks like he will have it. So Scott able to weed his way through that defensive line, and a first down here for Paulsboro. That's a big play.
Presley did a nice job closing on Scott that time, but how about Paulsboro going for it there? Way back, he's like 7 yards back that he gets to see it.
Well, he met a brick wall by the name of Chris Presley, but not before he eclipsed that first down marker. Handoff White. White finds a seam into the secondary. White being chased by McKinney. McKinney from behind drags him down. But Ryan White waited for the hole to open, found the seam, and it was only Marvin McKinney who could stop White from the touchdown run. A gain of 39 yards.
And McKinney, as you see, is down right now, too.
Well, this has been very difficult. These last few plays for Woodbury. Miller shaken up, and now McKinney. McKinney has been a major factor this afternoon.
Looked like Tarpley again on that block, sealing things. And Billig also got a tremendous block in there, the lead back, number 12. And very few people would have that, be able to catch him as McKinney.
Touchdown saving tackle by Marvin McKinney. We'll see if the Woodbury defense can hold. Timeout is called on the field. Woodbury trailing Paulsboro 7-0. Welcome back to Paulsboro High School. Paulsboro on top 7-0. 10-17 left in this football game. Marvin McKinney still being walked off by head coach Zach Valentine. First and goal. And Pearson is checked back into the football game. He has Billig, White, and Craig Bell in the backfield. Pearson handoff. And Bell brought down at about the 4-yard line. Trying to spot McKinney over on the sideline, and again, it looks like maybe they're working on cramps on his leg. Now, I said that last time about Castrava. 8th play of the drive here. Pearson, handoff again, Bell, and this time the Woodbury line holds.
Brandon Muse said, no, you're not going my way, big 78. I wonder with McKinney, he looked like he was holding like the back of his leg. I wonder if there's any kind of a hamstring or something with him.
Ryan White has eclipsed the 100-yard mark, 18 carries, 116 yards in the debut for the 2003 season. One setback, it's Billig in motion, Folks, and now Tarpley and White also in motion. Pearson, little end around, into the end zone. Touchdown! Steve Assay puts Paulsboro on top 13-0.
Nice little wrinkle going on inside reverse. And the way this Paulsboro defense is playing, it would be surprising if that is not enough.
Palomini's kick is blocked. Good pressure inside by Woodbury. So a glimmer of hope for the Thundering Herd as they trail 13-0. This is a Paulsboro team that has not lost to Woodbury since 1999. That came in the playoffs. And Paulsboro lost on that date by the score of 16-13.
See, they just give it to him to go inside. Oh, that's a nicely designed play that time. As you saw that, Billig just waited as if he were going to be the ball carrier and just stood there and let AC come inside. By the way, on that PAT, Marcus Blackwell getting the block that time for Woodbury.
There you see it, Paulsboro on top of Woodbury, 13-0. 8 minutes and 52 seconds left in this game. And Mark, you mentioned that it's going to be tough. Although 8:52 left, plenty of time for 2 touchdowns, but this Paulsboro defense has been so tough this afternoon. McKinney is checked back into the game, and he will return things, so good sign for the Thundering Herd. There you see the drive, 9 plays, 72 yards, consisting of 3:55 from the clock, and the big play, a 4th down carry at about midfield that allowed Paulsboro to extend that drive. So Palomini will kick off again, and it is McKinney. And he's in his own end zone, and because it is high school football, if he fields it in his own end zone, the play is dead.
McKinney's saying, hey, I wanted to return it.
So he's going to have to save himself here. 1st and 10 at the 20.
Well, a team that doesn't throw the ball particularly well, it's very, very difficult to come back in situations like this now. Not impossible. Zach Valentine still thinks his team's in this game. One thing I have to ask, though, what's going to happen when this Paulsboro team gets a little experience?
Yeah, if this is a down year, Colonial Conference is in trouble. Well, good sign for Woodbury as Kyle Miller has checked back into the game after being shaken up on defense. And off inside, and Presley just running over people once again.
I'd almost, at this point, I know high school teams don't do this a whole lot, I'd almost go no huddle at this point.
I agree. He can quickly shuttle in a play, but time obviously the enemy of Woodbury. Paulsboro's had the best of it all afternoon there. A wide margin in first downs. They started this day with 4 in a row, did Woodbury. So since the first quarter, it's been a whole new story. Here's Miller on the keep, and he'll be cut down, but not before picking up a first down. Trudell Hodge is on the tackle.
I know Miller's had a yeoman work both ways today, but when you're running that option, you have to be a little more decisive and turn that up a little sooner. Gave Paulsboro a little chance to get back there.
Here you see the hole that Miller was able to exploit, but as you mentioned, that hesitation maybe cost him 5 or 6 yards.
Has Palomini been on every tackle this half, or does it just seem that way?
Palomini has had a tremendous afternoon. Pitch, McKinney. He'll try to cut it back, but he will have nothing. In fact, he will lose about 7 yards, and Woodbury headed in the wrong direction.
Nate Dawson's another one of those sophomores that Paulsboro is very high on. And watch, you'll see number 40. He not only forces him outside, but he'll end up making the play. See, he doesn't let him cut back, and then he loses his feet. Fine play by the sophomore.
Second down and long for the Thundering Herd. 3 wideouts, split right. Miller back to pass. Getting some pressure from the weak side, and now it is caught. And driven backwards is the Woodbury receiver, Curtis Stokes. Pickup of about 10 or so, 3rd down and long for Woodbury.
Here's the problem for Paulsboro's opponents. Paulsboro's used a lot more people than in the past when it has set lineup, and has not lost anything when it's brought in these reserves. We just talked about Dawson. Scott's come off the bench.
Woodbury 3 for 7 on 3rd down conversions. Fake handoff, a little reverse. McKinney has one man to beat, and no clip is called. But nonetheless, McKinney is cut down as Paulsboro yells for a clip, but wisely, David Robinson held off.
But I'll tell you, Nate Dawson made a great play on that once again. He did not let McKinney get outside. Number 40, he was the guy that made the play, and even though there was no penalty, no clip called.
Well, the misdirection by Woodbury fooled no one, and again, a loss of yards forcing McKinney to punt it away.
When your linebackers can run almost as quickly as their running backs.
Another poor snap. McKinney low line drive, and that almost hit a Paulsboro Red Raider. White will simply allow it to roll, and that ball will be down at about the 25-yard line for Paulsboro. So McKinney has done a nice job back there as the punter. As we mentioned, he's had his hand in just about everything today. And Ryan White, the feature back for this Paulsboro team, has been very busy. And Paulsboro has a comfortable edge, 13-0 here in the 4th quarter. Kyle Miller, your quarterback for Woodbury, playing weak side linebacker as well. And he was shaken up the last series defensively.
You know, it's interesting. Paulsboro doesn't have an offensive lineman heavier than 220. It shows what you can do when you have quickness up front, and they've really been quick.
Quick hitter inside. Billig, the ball carrier. Gain of 4, 2nd down and 6. Well, here you see Billig again exploiting that hole quickly. Second down. Billig may have jumped. Gets the ball, and nothing there. Third down play here for Paulsboro. They will head to the road against Haddon Township next week, and then the following week home again against Haddon Heights and Haddonfield on consecutive weekends.
Again, Paulsboro just looking to eat clock, not make any turnovers. Notice how Woodbury's trying to strip the ball, Billig with both arms around it.
So timeout called on the field. Don't be surprised, Mark, if these two teams face one another again come playoff time.
I don't think there's any question they'll both be in the Group 1 playoffs. I'm very high also on Salem this year, Rob, with the junior running back, Corey Smith.
Well, tune in Friday night at 8 p.m. as CN8 Sports brings you exciting Big East soccer action. Longtime rivals Boston College and UConn meet for the first time since last year's Big East championship game. That's Friday night, 8 p.m., right here on CN8.
By the way, the mayors of these two towns have a little bit of a bet. Leslie Clark of Woodbury and John Berchicelli of Paulsboro, and the losing team's mayor has to go in the Woodbury parade and wear the winning team's colors.
That won't go over real well in Woodbury should Paulsboro win. There you see Glenn Howard. One thing he knows about is winning. He has really done a tremendous job here at Paulsboro. Again, Woodbury keeps pitch out to White. White cuts it back inside, finally stopped. That'll bring up a 4th down at about 3, and Palomini comes out to do the punting. 4 minutes and change remaining.
Muse going for the quarterback. And I think Pearson's decision-making on the option has been a real key for Paulsboro here today. I mean, he's been getting rid of it at the right moment. There's Tarpley again with another block.
Palomini will punt it away. Back to receive, it's McKinney. And he gets it away, it's high. And the one thing this will do is not allow McKinney to return it. So not a very good punt. But McKinney unable to lay his hands on it. There you see Palomini. Nino Palomini has done a tremendous job this afternoon for this Paulsboro Red Raiders team. There you see some of the big crowd that's on hand. And Mark, I just love coming to Paulsboro High School for any sporting event, particularly football. This is a town that eats, sleeps, and drinks football. A true blue-collar town that has really created a tradition and set the watershed or watermark for what is high school tradition.
Wrestling and football programs, 2 of the best in the state here.
Miller back to pass, has time across the middle, throws it up, and misses Charles Smith. Just 2 for 8 on the afternoon for Miller, and shaken up on the play is Ainsley Carrera.
One thing we've mentioned is that the Paulsboro receivers have been open. Conversely, Woodbury's haven't been. A nice coverage by the secondary. The other thing is Paulsboro has quick linebackers who can get back in their drops. This has just been a really solid defensive effort.
Here you see assistant coach Gene Reed talking things over with Kyan Grimes. And they will run another play in here. Of course, Gene Reed, the head baseball coach at Woodbury High School. And coming off is Ainsley Carrera. So, good sign for the Red Raiders. As we mentioned, always a big crowd here at Paulsboro, particularly for this big rivalry. Second down. 10 to go for Woodbury. 3:28 left in this one. Presley, your lone setback. Miller getting some pressure. He'll have to dump it off. Unable to do so, and a big sack. Second sack today for Paulsboro. And Tarpley and Hodges met at the quarterback.
Tarpley's the one that first forced him out of the pocket. He'll be coming from Miller's left, right there. Forces him out. And then he's not going to outrun Hodges or Tarpley as they both put the sack on him.
Again, and that's where Miller has to know when to get rid of the football. Third down and 21.
It's tough, though, when your defensive linemen are as fast as a quarterback and you can't outrun them. And that's the problem with playing Paulsboro.
Back to pass. Miller getting a rush, and he's hit when he throws. The linemen catch the football, and it's ruled a tip. It's ruled a tip. So because it's ruled a tip, Brandon Muse is eligible to catch the football, and right now Miller is writhing in pain. It looked to be Courtney Bass that laid out the hit, and Muse may have hurt his hand after being tackled. Well, remember, Miller was shaken up on the defense previously, and here you see, never really sees Courtney Bass coming.
Left side right there.
And got a shot underneath his right arm.
I don't think he tipped that.
Well, Muse said, I'm going to pick up this ball and worry about consequences later. It was ruled a tip, and Muse able to pick up some positive yardage. So perhaps a makeable fourth down here, but Miller will have to come off. And Woodbury in the difficult position of needing a new quarterback now.
Now, there was a flag on this play. I thought there was. Maybe
they picked it up.
Okay.
One referee ruled that it was not a tip. Another one overruled that. So now fourth down, and needless to say, a critical play for the Thundering Herd. Fourth down and 15. Woodbury 0 for 1 today on fourth down conversion. So a timeout is called on the field. And that'll be charged to Woodbury. So we look ahead. Paulsboro looks like they have this game in hand, Mark. Other than Woodbury, do you see anybody in the Colonial Conference challenging the Red Raiders?
Not really. I mean, no, I thought this would be, as I said earlier in the telecast, I think Haddon Heights thinks that it can make a little bit of a run, but especially not in the Patriot division. Now, later in the year, they always schedule West Deptford on Thanksgiving. That could be a heck of a game. Right now, you would give West Deptford the edge, but what do I know? I gave Woodbury the edge coming in here. So West Deptford, an extremely talented team, and again, it would be surprising if anyone overtakes the Eagles in the Colonial Liberty division.
And for Woodbury, coming off an impressive win over Haddonfield, defeating them 20-7, really felt good about their chances here this afternoon. They're going to have to regroup.
Absolutely. I mean, they probably realize that the chance of the division title is going to be very difficult, but there's still a lot of postseason goals for this Woodbury team to shoot for.
2:26 left. Back to pass, throws it up, and looking for McKinney, but that ball is well out of bounds, and the ball is turned over to Paulsboro, and that's the one place you don't want to throw the ball.
The tough situation for the sophomore, Anthony Cosleone, who just came in, and of course he's been playing defense, and had to come in and throw a pass like that. So tough situation.
Well, Paulsboro will look to run out the clock here as we have 2 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. And I think Glenn Howard can finally relax a little bit on that sideline.
One thing, if you're Paulsboro, you hope that Kyle Castrava, the two-way lineman, is okay. Came off the game, hasn't been back. Certainly played a terrific game here today.
Here's Ryan White, cut down. They'll pick up 3 or 4 yards, second down for Paulsboro. White on the afternoon, averaging over 6 yards per carry. 20 carries, 122 yards.
Running inside, outside, and as we said, very elusive and shifty, and has made a lot of defenders miss him as well.
Once again, it's White. Again, picking up 2 or 3 yards here.
Well, we said Paulsboro would probably do running back by committee, but White, I think, has had so many impressive runs, they couldn't take him out of the game.
Well, I was impressed from the very first carry, Mark, because what he lacks in size, he makes up for in heart.
And again, we said a lot of Woodbury receivers weren't open. White's part of that secondary, too. Has done such an outstanding job today for the Red Raiders.
1 minute left. Hand off again to White. White met in the backfield, still able to elude 2 tacklers, but brought down after no gain. So 4th down here for Paulsboro, and Woodbury quickly calls timeout. So 49 seconds left. We'll see if Paulsboro opts to punt or merely will run the football once again.
Timeout, Woodbury.
Well, just to recap, last week, of course, Mark, we saw Morristown and Camden Catholic teams. You see White's Day. Morristown held Camden Catholic relatively close, and they had a tough schedule ahead. They ended up with a big win over Woodrow Wilson.
They still have Willingboro and Northern in the next 2 weeks as well. Well, I don't know, Rob. What can you say about the job that Paulsboro's Glenn Howard has done and his staff preparing these youngsters? Woodbury had a game under its belt. This was a very, very young Paulsboro team, and you know, holding Woodbury, I thought in the first half when Woodbury got to the Paulsboro 30-yard line and not allowing them to score, I thought was a real key.
Well, and speaking with Zach Valentine before the game, I asked him what the keys were to this game. He said, we need to play mistake-free football. They haven't done that, but turnovers are even. And he said, we need to be aggressive and confident. He worried about the Paulsboro tradition, and maybe that got the best of Woodbury today.
Well, get it after this play.
Pitch to White. White still on his feet and finally wrestled down from behind. Brian Duffield able to drop Ryan White. So 1st down and 10 here for Woodbury with 43 seconds.
And the big play, obviously, in the first half when Duffield was in that corner of the end zone, they ruled him out of bounds. That certainly changed the complexion of the game. There's Muse getting a shot. Muse has played one heck of a game as well.
Well, Miller's still out of the game for Woodbury, so they will likely be forced to go to the air. Just 43 seconds left. Rochelone back to pass and throws it up. Tipped by Paulsboro, and again, not a single white shirt in that area, as there may have been a breakdown in communication.
It's amazing. This Paulsboro streak would be getting a lot more attention if the other one hasn't overshadowed it. But you're talking 36 games in a row now it'll be after this. The second longest streak in South Jersey history. Of course, the longest streak Paulsboro owns in state history, as we said. So it's a lot of winning.
37 seconds left. Presley, the lone setback. Coach alone, again, overthrowing his receiver and picked off by Carrera. Carrera now with a nice return on his own, still on his feet, and finally brought down at about the 33-yard line of Woodbury. And that'll certainly do it for this one. 23 seconds remain, and Paulsboro again makes a statement about who the team to beat is in this Colonial Conference and in South Jersey Group 1.
The other thing's interesting is how well Paulsboro did passing the ball today. I mean, we knew they were going to run the ball. We said if they threw it more than 12 times, they wouldn't like to do it. Pearson 7 for 10, 61 yards, and made some tremendous decisions on the option when to get rid of the balls. You see the final interception there.
And Pearson will take a knee, and that'll do it here. As the clock continues to run down, 15 seconds remaining, and Paulsboro will continue their win streak to 36 games. Woodbury again has not defeated this Paulsboro team since 1999. And your final score here from Paulsboro High School: Paulsboro defeats Woodbury 13-0. But stick around, we'll have post-game interviews, our player of the game, and statistics right after this. Welcome back to Paulsboro High School. Paulsboro victorious once again over Woodbury 13-0. Let's take a look at our Blue Cross Blue Shield play of the game. And this was Earl Pearson feeling the pressure from the Woodbury defense, able to roll out, and he had a big tight end in the corner of the end zone, Tarpley all by himself, and that put Paulsboro ahead after the point after 7-0. And our own Marc Narducci with the winning head coach, Glenn Howard.
Coach Howard, I know you've had a lot of big wins. This one's your 36th in a row. You had 63 in a row before that. But how about the fact that you beat a very good Woodbury team with it has to be one of your youngest teams you've opened the season with?
Well, we feel very fortunate to come out of this game with a W today. I just thank God that everybody played their hearts out, and we had decent week of practice, not a great week of practice. So for us to come out in our first game and perform the way we did today, offensively and defensively and special teams, I'm really proud of the way we played.
Did you have concerns coming in because you're going with, it looks like, with more sophomores than you've gone with in a long time?
Yes, well, those sophomores won the job, so they're good ball players and they're going to be good in the future. And we got some seniors mixed in there and some juniors, and we got a good crop of kids.
Glenn, it looked like early on Woodbury had it. They were controlling you a little bit. It looked like it took about a quarter to get your feet wet. They had played the week before. But after that, your team seemed to get a lot of confidence.
Yeah, we started moving the ball. We felt as though we could move the ball pretty decent on them. And we stalled out a couple times, but we played pretty good defense the entire game. And our special teams were pretty solid throughout most of the day. So we're real happy. With this being the first game, we really didn't know what to expect, and it was their second game. You had to watch trick plays and all that kind of stuff, so we had a lot to prepare for, and the kids did just a great job, everything we wanted them to do.
Well, I know you watch as much film as anybody, but when you go in and playing them and you have to stop a Presley up the middle and a McKinney outside, how do you prepare for that?
Well, you just got to play good, sound defense. Everybody has a responsibility to do, especially when you play an option ball club. There's 3 phases. You have to put a guy on each phase, and we worked hard on it. We're an option team, so we know a little bit about stopping the option. And with Presley, it's just a matter, he's so big to, get good tackling technique and try to bring him down. But he was dragging a lot of our tacklers. He's a big, strong kid.
You had a lot of seniors today, but a lot of them are first-time starters, one being your quarterback, Earl Pearson. I thought he came in and did a great job today, not only passing, but I thought the way he ran the option, I thought he got rid of the ball when he had to, made great decisions.
Yeah, he's done a real fine job today. he had a nice training camp. He's been sitting in the wings waiting for his turn for 3 years, and he got his shot today, and he did a real nice job. I'm real pleased with the way he threw the ball, the decisions he made, and with this game experience under his belt, we're looking for even bigger and better things for the entire season.
Hey, one last thing, Ryan White, what a game this senior gave you on both sides of the ball. It's a type of senior leadership I know that you really want it, especially week one with this young team.
Yeah, well, we thank God for Ryan and all of our players, but Ryan's another guy who's been sitting in the wings waiting his chance to run the ball. He started at corner last year as a junior, was all conference, and he's waiting in his wings behind Isaac Redmond, a Division I guy, for 3 years. So he's getting his chance, and you saw a little bit of taste of what he could do today.
Glenn, congratulations.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Job. Glenn Howard of Paulsboro, 152 wins and 22 losses in his career. And as he said, Ryan White did a tremendous job for this game, had a big game, 123 yards rushing. And of course, we're going to be looking at a highlight of Ryan White as we get ready to talk to the Paulsboro senior with the long run, and then this really capping things off. And it looked like he was there for the end zone, and unless the great play by McKinney to bring him down. And Ryan White is so shifty, and he makes a lot of people miss. And there you see McKinney coming a long, long time and getting a lot of ground. And Ryan White, just one of his many spectacular runs, and he's with us now with Rob Christ.
Well, thank you, Mark. You know, Ryan, you come out here, your first opportunity as a starting running back, a big year last year as a junior. Obviously important to really set the bar high for this vaunted program. What is it that you prepared yourself for come in preseason to put yourself as one of the leaders of this team?
Just got to the weight room, practiced hard, had a hard training camp, and our line stepped it up.
Well, you talk about this offensive line that you had, a relatively young line, but it seemed like you worked well in unison. Oftentimes they blew up a hole immediately, but you also have very good patience as a runner.
Yeah, the line did good.
Well, you know, Ryan, again, 123 yards in a debut versus a very good Woodbury team. You know, it had to be a motivating factor knowing that some people picked Woodbury to win this Colonial Conference.
Yeah. They got a real good defense. Presley runs the ball hard. McKinney's real fast, hits the outside real good. We just had to contain McKinney and tackle Presley.
You know, Coach Howard talked about the tradition here at Paulsboro, particularly that of Isaac Redmond being a feature back here for years. When you are on the bench and you're watching a player like Isaac Redmond, what type of things are you learning from him?
He had good cuts, real good vision, good patience.
And what do you, as a running back, take away from that?
Just run hard, make some cuts, just get north.
You know, get north. I like that. Now, as one of the players, again, in a program that has such great tradition, how much pressure is it on the team not to stop this streak?
A lot of pressure, but we really don't talk about it. We had a 63-game winning streak. It's really nothing yet.
Now, when you look ahead again, after this win, you have to be probably the favorite team in South Jersey Group 1. I mean, what do you see from the standpoint of a team leader that you need to do personally to get this team to the place where you want it to be?
Just got to practice hard, come out every week, take one game at a time.
Okay, Ryan. Well, thank you very much. Again, Ryan White, our player of the game. Give us an opportunity to take a look at our Blue Cross Blue Shield halftime statistics. And there you see it. Again, rushing Paulsboro 180 yards. Huge day led by Ryan White. Total yards over 100-yard difference, Mark. And one thing that you mentioned was Pearson really effective throwing the football.
Yeah, you see him there, very, very accurate, and again, just 61 yards, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Rob. 7 for 10, and just made some tremendous decisions. A guy that's really patiently waited in the wings to get his first start here.
Well, you know, I know Bill Cowher always talks about the importance of third down conversions, and if you can manhandle the other team on third down, then you're going to win the football game. When you have 60% success rate on third down conversions, that is outstanding.
Yeah, Paulsboro just It's funny, Rob. They were the young team and everything, and they played like a seasoned group today. And I thought they did need a quarter to get their feet wet. I thought they were a little bit unsure of themselves. But after that, and after they got rolling, they just do so much repetition, as Coach Howard said, each week in practice. And it shows on game day.
You know, and speaking with some of the Paulsboro assistants, they mentioned that they were a little concerned about the beginning of the game. They only had 2 scrimmages. Things were going to start relatively slowly, and that's really what happened. Woodbury started off 4 straight first downs, but they really shut them down after that.
Right, and I'll tell you, there's no one better in South Jersey than making adjustments than Glenn Howard, and he saw what they were doing, and he certainly took away their outside game because they might have had a little more team speed than Paulsboro. He took away that, and they had trouble with everything else.
Now, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think everybody expects that these 2 teams will see one another once again come playoff time. How does Zach Valentine game plan a little bit differently in order to come up on top?
Well, I think a lot depends on who's healthy. That's going to be a couple months away. I don't think Zach's worrying about that, but I think the next time I think he's got to use Presley a little bit more.
Yeah, Chris Presley, Brandon Muse, big games for Woodbury. We can't say enough about them. And, you know, you mentioned before that this is a young team. Paulsboro had so many key performers. Nino Palomini had a tremendous football game today.
Right, he was one of the many defensive players, a linebacker going from sideline to sideline, and especially in the second half, he was in on just about every tackle.
Well, I'd like to say, I said to Glenn Howard after the game that the beat just goes on here at Paulsboro. 36 straight wins now for the Red Raiders as we wrap up things here from Paulsboro High School. For my director, Stan Ritter, my partner, Marc Narducci, I'm Rob Christ. Thanks again for joining us. Good day, everyone.